Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Alisa here. Welcome back to the SERGER series. I am really happy to see you here, and I truly hope that together with these videos you have a chance to explore your SERGER and really see all of the great things that it can do and incorporate those techniques into your sewing. Now today, let's take a look at a really fun and very useful technique called a flat lock seam. As always, we will go over the steps and over the settings, as well as the principle behind how this technique works, so that way you can play around with it no matter what fabric you're using. And then we will also complete a hem of the garment together using this technique, so that way you can see how you can apply this. So now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Now, the reason why this technique is called a flat lock seam is pretty much in the name. Is because after everything is done and you pull your pattern pieces apart after completing the flat lock seam, everything will be flat, which is really great for reducing bulk in garments like, for example, athletic wear or athleisure, where you really want to minimize the thickness that gets created by a regular seam allowance. Now, you can also use this technique in order to add a decorative touch to your garments. Now, this is a 3-thread technique on my SERGER, but as always, I do encourage you to grab your SERGER manual so that way you know exactly what settings to apply to your particular make and model. As for the thread, when you practice, it's really great to have different color thread so that way you can see exactly what's going on. Now, the first step is to remove one of the needles, and in this technique, you can remove the left needle in order to get a narrower seam, or you can remove the right needle in order to get a seam that's a little bit wider. This is also a double-sided technique, meaning you can choose which side of the seam you would like to see on the right side of the garment. From here, you will also make a decision how you're going to thread your serger. So if you want this side, I call it the ladder, to be seen on the right side of the fabric, then you're going to thread your dominant color into your needle. If you want the other side, I call it the snake, to be seen, then you're going to thread the main color into your upper looper. You can of course choose all 3 colors to be the same as well, and then complete threading of the serger as per usual. Now let's go ahead and talk about the tension, which of course is a place where a lot of that magic of this technique is going to happen. Here we have sort of this dance between the needle tension and the lower looper tension. So you will want to loosen up, so decrease the tension of the needle, whichever one you're using, and you will want to up or tighten up the tension of your lower looper. The lower looper will pull the needle thread across the back, and then once you pull your fabric pieces apart, that will create that flat lock seam. First, I'm going to follow the suggestions in my manual. So for my left needle, the one that I left in, I'm going to turn my tension all the way down to 1. For my right needle, I will leave it as is because that's the needle that I took out. For my upper looper, I'm going to leave it at 4 as it is for right now. And for my lower looper, let's go ahead and turn it up to 7. As for the stitch width, stitch length, and differential feed, everything is going to stay as is for regular serging. When it comes to different fabrics, I find that this particular technique actually works well on a wide range of knits. I would say medium weight, medium to heavy weight, but nothing too lightweight. So I do like using it on fluffy fleece and sweater knits, like in this example. I also find that it works really well on t-shirt knits. And perhaps one of my favorite fabrics to use it on is French terry. So we're going to use these 2 little pieces as our test sample. I'm going to place my fabric right sides together, but remember that this technique is double-sided, so you can choose which side of the seam you would like to see. Next, I'm going to lift up my presser foot, lift up my needle, place my fabric right underneath, lower my presser foot, and start serging. Once done, this is what we're going to have. We will need to play around with tension just a little bit, but basically on one side you're going to see the green snake, which was the upper looper thread. Then on the bottom you're going to see almost a straight line of the orange thread, which was the needle thread. And here on the rib of the fabric, you're going to see almost a straight line formed by the navy blue thread, which was the lower looper thread. And when we turn the fabric to the other side, you should see an orange zigzag, which is formed by one of your needle threads. The real moment of truth, however, is when we pull this apart and see how it looks. On one side we see the ladder, and on the other side we see the snake, and this could actually do pretty well. But if I look a little bit closer right here on the wrong side of the fabric, I can see that I could perhaps loosen up the tension of the upper looper and on the needle just a little bit more, so that way this side lays a little bit flatter against the fabric itself. A good rule of thumb would be to start adjusting just one of the values. So let's go ahead and lower the tension of the needle from 1 down to 0 and give it a go. The result is good, but I still feel that I could get the seam allowance a little bit closer to the main fabric. So I'm going to lower the tension of the upper looper from 4 all the way down to 3. Alright, here's the moment of truth after pulling it apart. So the ladder side looks nearly identical on both, but if we turn it to the other side and we'll look at that little spot right over here, you can see that on the new sample we see a lot less of the orange thread, and the seam allowance itself sits a little bit closer to the fabric. You can then use this in order to construct a seam or to hem a garment, which is my favorite use of this technique. I prefer doing this while the garment or the pattern piece is still flat, and the steps here are going to be very similar to a blind hem technique. So first, of course, we're going to fold the hem to the wrong side of the fabric and then give it a good press. Once done, let's go ahead and turn it upside down and fold the hem just like you see me do on your screen, creating a little sandwich. That's how we're going to take it to the serger. When you're ready, go ahead and disengage the knife so that way you don't cut off any fabric by accident. And then let's start serging. After getting the hem done, I will continue working on my garment. And one of the reasons why I like doing this flat versus in the round is because then I can get a really clean connection point when I sew this all together. Because if you're doing this in the round, my particular serger has a little bit of a trouble going over those layers of seams when they meet at the side. You can see it very well here how the stitching gets a little bit irregular. If you want the other side of the seam to be seen on the right side of the fabric, then we're going to start by folding everything exactly the same way, giving it a really good press, but then instead of folding it like so, we're actually going to fold it like this. Now, this side is going to go underneath the serger. Once done, you're going to see the snake on the right side of the fabric and the ladder on the inside. To add a little bit more pop to this technique, you can actually purchase variegated thread or swirly thread, which has multiple colors on one thread, and then it looks really cool, especially for the fabrics when there's a really bright pattern and you're just not sure which color to pick to show through on the right side of the fabric. I must say that that moment when you pull the fabric pieces apart to reveal all those colorful stitches on the inside, it never gets old. It's almost like a little piece of magic happening right in front of your eyes. So I truly hope that you're going to give this technique a chance and explore it. And if you haven't seen our previous episodes, here it is about a rolled hem technique. Super fun, super useful. We go over a lot of different things, especially going over the curves and doing the corners. So I'll see you in that video. And until next time, happy, thoughtful serging. I'll see you soon. Bye!